keep these. So let's see if we find some good right way to organize them. So editor, API, sync and WebSockets, they are supposed to be just one after the other. That's fine then. We can have WebSocket as well. So inside editor there's gonna be WebSocket, and apart from WebSocket we will have one more, and that's gonna be sync. Well, this isn't the best way. That's not really a bad deal. This is gonna be overall fine. So we already have over here, especially in this API, we have shape.api, and shape.api just simply uses the access client, makes the request to the backend, and when it comes to creating a shape we are passing the shape. When it comes to updating a shape, so we are passing the page ID, and we are even passing the page ID in every case over here and everywhere. And then when it comes to updating that, so we are just simply passing all the shapes to be updated, and then ultimately we are passing the updated shapes. And apart from this particular thing, when it comes to deleting a shape, so we are passing all the shapes IDs to be deleted and then getting the shape that is fine. So let me just simply give it to this sync shape.sync and WebSocket. Socket is not quite implemented yet, so we just have to focus on this shape sync.ts. So we are gonna have this, no Zoost and no WebSocket. Sync will contain both, so it will have this and this. So let's not worry about this as well as for right now. Shape sync.ts, no canvas logic. WebSocket contains socket is specific, connector is connector, send shape created, send shape updated, and handle shape updated. I would avoid source service API WebSocket because these are only used by editor. Keeping them at the root makes the project less modular. As your app grows, you add later authentication, dashboarding, management, comments, notifications. Your structure naturally becomes auth, editor, API, sync, WebSocket, and all these things. Settings, everything related to the editor itself. Content, one thing I'd change: instead of separate shape sync.ts, image sync.ts, etc., I'd consider a single editor sync. Since actions like creating a shape and uploading an image, deleting a frame, or moving multiple shapes are part of synchronizing the editor state, having one coordinator often scales better than many sync files. Your API layer can still remain split resources, etc. So ultimately that's gonna be inside sync, editor sync.ts is gonna be there. So we have API, similarly we can have many. Then we can have editor sync.ts, and we have sync here, and then socket.ts of course we are gonna be having here. So WebSocket will have socket.ts. Socket.ts, probably this is a better way to organize this, and we can just simply keep going on like this. Okay, first of all, when it comes to shape, so let me give it to the AI. Is this good? This is a good start. I would make a few small improvements. Return only the response. So HCS client returns the entire HCS response. So we are gonna be returning the data from here. That is right. So ultimately what it's saying, return only the response data. Right now we are returning the entire access response. Instead of this we can go ahead like this, do the same for other methods. So we are gonna be returning the data from here. Likewise we can get the things done for it. Batch create optional. Right now you have create shape, and this, that's perfectly fine. instead let a single sync layer call them that gives one place to batch rapid updates while dragging retry failed request coordinate WebSocket broadcast and HTTP persistent and offline. Add offline support later. The API module should remain a thin wrapper around HTTP while the sync layer decides when and how often it invokes. Already not really big problem. And one more thing that I forgot, that I may have to copy and paste the things. So in that case, create shape when it comes to this. So update shapes, give me create shapes, because we may be creating many shapes, right? So that would rather be better. So if your backend supports creating multiple shapes in one request, post pinch shapes with an array, then create shapes. This is how it can actually be created, and this pair nicely with the rest of your APIs. That is right. So I'm just simply gonna be creating many shapes at the same time. What we are doing, we are getting the page ID shapes, and apart from this particular thing, it simply says that I'm gonna return a promise, and that simply means we'll have to await it. Do we need to await it? Data is already there, so that doesn't need to be awaited. So await access client post, this is the generic that we are giving. That simply means it will accept shapes as an array as data. And once this is done, so I'm gonna be getting the data from here. I'm returning the data. So promise shape. Why is this the return type? Is the data if this is a sync, so we'll have to make it promise. Ultimately we are gonna be returning the shape, because that's what we are gonna get from the backend. Okay, that's fine. We'll see how it works. Only thing, this is the problematic. We'll see. Why is the return time promise shape? Why is the return type promise? Data is usually not a promise, right? Because every async function TypeScript always returns a promise, even if you return a plain value. Okay, that's right. So even if we are returning a plain value, we'll have to return a promise. So what's access client returns a promise, access response awaits, unwraps the promise to access response. Shape data is shape, since the function is async. TypeScript wraps return a shape back into the promise shape. So conceptually it's like returns promise dot resolve in data. So you can even omit that, and it's gonna be just simply TypeScript infers the promise shape automatically. Should you write it explicitly? I usually recommend yes for exported functions, because it serves as documentation and caches. Okay, that's fine. For example, if you accidentally return true, then it is just gonna make sure that it handles it well. Alrighty, so this is how we have shape APIs, and once we have shape APIs, they are gonna be used for making the request to the backend. As for right now, we just need to have it. Later I'm gonna use editor sync and socket.ts, but not for now, because of course I'm not implementing WebSocket related stuff right now. So once this thing is done, so it's time to just call them. Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about this. Should I create a hook? Should I create a hook that runs and gets all the shapes from backend? Let me see. And apart from this particular thing, meanwhile we have to just get one more. First of all, let's focus on this. Yes, but I'd make it responsible for loading the initial page state, not just getting the shapes. Since your editor has shapes, image assets, page metadata, later comments, collaboration frames, etc., you'd eventually want to load the entire page. What I recommend, create a hook like features editor hooks editor, and inside that particular editor I'm gonna have hooks. Use load page.ts, or use load page, and internally it can just simply get the shapes, get the image assets, and then you can just simply set them here. Your editor component becomes use load page id. Option 2, if you are only loading shapes today, then use shapes query. So in that case, use shapes query. Behind the scene it's gonna be this is fine initially, but you probably replace it with use page load. What the hooker should not do, you shouldn't return the shapes if you are already storing in use stand. So ultimately this is how it can just simply go on. Even better, your hook can also initialize WebSocket connection. Use load page internally, loads the shape this, and then join room id, listen for shape updates and listen for image updates. Now your editor only needs to one line use load page, everything else initially fetch plus real time sync is handled in one place. For a project given that you are building a collaboration, I would create use load page rather than use get shapes. Today it may only fetch shapes, but the editor goes and blah blah blah. Okay, should I just load a page or entire board that has pages? If I just go with the entire board, then there can be many shapes, so it's just gonna be the combination. I will load the board first, then load the current page. Don't load all page contents at once. Think of it like film or telegram. It's like there are gonna be pages, but board it will have the metadata, then it will have the pages, the current page shapes and all these things. Open board, so as soon as we open the board, it returns only metadata and it returns all the pages, no shapes. Board info page, list active page, and then user clicks another page and replaces only shapes, image assets. No need to reload the board. Why not reload every page? It can have many shapes and that's gonna be problematic. That's over 3000 shapes loaded in memory. That is right hook structure. I would use load board and use load page. Board is gonna just simply give us the board information, and that is right. And use load page is gonna give us the page information. So that simply means inside features, especially inside editor itself, I'm gonna have hooks now, and they are gonna specifically for use load board. They belongs to this section. So features, dashboard, auth. We have editor. So this editor, should they be part of editor? Canvas is just a normal canvas, so hook doesn't need to be here. So this is not gonna be part of this. First of all, so auth, dashboard, and there can be board as well. As soon as we get the board, so should the hook be part of editor? I think it can be part of editor, because at the end of the day we will have the pages there only. I would say no, they shouldn't be part of editor itself, because their responsibility is data loading, not editor behavior. I'd separate your app into app board, board id page.tsx, and then features board, API hooks. That's what I would. Okay, that's gonna be different one. So inside features we'll have the features for the board as well, and it will just simply load. Interesting. Let's go on like this. So similarly, I have to have the sync and all these things there as well. How about sync API and WebSocket? Just a sec, give me a moment. So since your project is an Excalidraw clone, I organized them based on who owns the functionality rather than what technology they use. So board will have API hooks, components stored. Editor will have sync API and WebSocket. So ultimately editor will be using the saving this stuff, syncing this stuff, broadcasting that. So yeah, that is right. As for the board, we'll be getting board will have use board or use page. So ultimately how they are gonna be connected. Editor API only contains HTTP calls. WebSocket only contains this. Sync only contains this. An alternative I like even more. As the project grows, you may find a single sync folder becomes crowded instead of. Okay, we can have image shape. So when it comes to this, so it can even have its API sync and all these things. Everything related to the shape lives together. Okay. Which one would I choose? For your current project, around 15 to 20, I stick with API, WebSocket, sync, and all these things. It's simple and intuitive. As the project becomes much larger, you can always refactor it into features based the folders, shape, image, etc. without changing the overall design. Okay, before even doing that, coming back to this, we first that will just simply set the state. This is how the things are organized now. Let me see what to do next. Overall, I think this is solid that you've done, Joseph journey. I think these belongs to exactly where they are. I named drawing, but you also have another reason that if you can do. I set tools for creation because it produces concept for this. Creation pointer, I don't think pointer deserves its own top level folder. I move it into interactions. Okay, that's fine. Utilities. I would eventually move networking under one folder, so probably like this, because all these three parts of the same concern. When the project grows, this becomes easier to navigate. My ideal structure is gonna be sort of like this. One more suggestion: since you are building I'd consider renaming drawing to creation. The editor has two completely different concepts, creation and then render makes the distinction. That is fine. So as for right now, editor, you will have the networking folder. So networking, and I'll have API in there, and this pointer is gonna be part of interactions. It's the pointer that I actually have. Should it be part of interactions? Later I'm gonna be moving it, not really big problem. Sync is gonna be here. And WebSocket is gonna be here as well. Overall, this is how things are gonna be going on. Few meters here. So we have the networking and everything related to the networking is just under that. Pointer will take care of it later on. Interactions are here. API sync and WebSocket. So WebSocket from the front end side, the logic is gonna stay here. And I'll name it later. Name of the hook that's responsible for fetching the data when the page loads. What should be the name of that particular hook? And they're gonna be part of editor only. So use load page. So when it comes to use load page, so when I click on that, then only then that comes here. How about board slash room data? And where can I even keep that? I would separate board and page loading because they have different life cycles. So use board, use load board, and that's actually gonna be use load page. So board and pages. Folder structure is gonna be sort of like this. So editor is already here. Room hooks, use room connection, use and even editor will have use load page. Inside the editor having the page. Okay, that's fine. Editor can have I wouldn't combine the board load, and then room has use room connection, and board has use load board.ts. Okay, that's fine. As for loading the board, we are gonna be doing it later on. But first of all, I wanna make sure that we are actually able to load the page. First of all, this thing, any random page, and we are able to save the data in there. Then we can reorganize the other things later. But at least this needs to be handled well before that. Inside the editor, we can have something called use load page.ts. Should I keep it inside networking? So ultimately it's not just about writing the code, it's about structuring it well. And the goal is to keep working on it for an hour. So ultimately for half an hour we'll still work on this. I wouldn't. Use load is not a networking hook. Networking is just one implementation detail of what it does. Think of its responsibility. Use page load page into the editor internally to make all the API. Initialize the editor restore, join the WebSocket room, reset the selection, restore viewport later, start presence later. So it's really an editor lifecycle hook, not a networking hook. I recognize it. Mhm. As for the shortcuts, we already have our hooks, so we don't really need to worry about them. They are the part of the interactions as well. I can just simply create a hook folder as of right now. And once we have hook, that's gonna be use load page. Use load page.ts, then simply give me the code for use load page. It is just simply gonna load the data. And at the end of the day, it needs to be called somewhere. So when it is actually called somewhere, load page, so yeah, it can be called initially, that's fine at the beginning. Let's fix this thing first of all. Use shed shape, use set shapes. Let's get them here. Get shapes, let's get them from the networking and the API. So that is mainly the part of networking, that's fine, good to have it here. So when we start set loading, we even have the loading and error here, that's fine, not a problem. Set loading to set error from scroll shape, then we just simply pass the shape ID, we get all the shapes. After that we just simply set the shapes. Once the shapes are actually set, then images, we have to get all the images. Just setting the shapes isn't fine, so we have to get the images. We don't really have any suggestions at all, so we still need to work on that. Then comments, and then WebSocket dot join. Set loading page ID, and whenever this runs, load the page. This one, WebSocket leave. This is when is the WebSocket connection is ready. So WebSocket is actually ready as soon as you enter the board. It's gonna be sort of like this. There are gonna be different pages. Your shapes are gonna be shown on different pages, but as soon as we enter the board, the WebSocket is ready. Get page returns us everything, right? Okay, we can have shapes or we can directly have the page. So get page. What we are doing on the backend side, we have the image over here. Get image assets. should I create a separate controller for this? That could be something called page dot something, so that might be helpful. I would in fact the get pages page ID the primary endpoint that initializes the editor instead of your front end making several requests. We can just simply make a get request at this, and okay, so that's gonna be page controller.ts. We'll have one more, and that's gonna be page dot controller.ts, something like this. Page controller ping, it actually needs to be removed later, but it's fine. And we can actually get the shapes image assets. So page id shapes, then rooms shapes for that particular page, and then room id and image assets. So we can get the image assets for the entire room, that is also fine. And page id comments and page id this, make one request. Page controller, so page controller will have get page, get image assets, get this, give me code for all the page controllers. Even we'll have to have one more thing here, that is page will return everything related to the page, so we'll have to have probably shape, not the shape actually. First of all we have the pages, and we can have board dot controller dot ts or the room dot controller dot ts. So ultimately it will have boards dot board id pages and boards dot board id pages for the creating a board, and for just simply getting all the boards, and after that we will have the pages routes. So create page is gonna be sort of like this, that must be part of image itself. We will have get pages, we will have get page, returns the info of only one page, and update page will help us update the page, and delete page will help us delete the page. Would also create board controller. There are many errors, we are gonna be fixing them, but I have board dot controller dot ts as well. Give me board and we can even have shape or image controllers, right? CRUD operations while editing, everything needed to initialize the editor for a specific page, board metadata and page list, that is fine. So we can have create board. Again, they are not exactly the way they should be, so we'll have to make many changes to make sure that they fit our schema or the way we are getting the things done. But at least we are gonna get the overall overall structure to just simply go ahead with, who will just simply keep fighting all these. Alright, it's time to just simply fix the things. So first of all, let's work on this board section. So suppose we are creating a board. First of all, we don't really have it here. That's insane. We don't have a board, then what do we have? Probably we have room here. Yeah, we have room here. No, that's the room member section. So instead of naming it room, I'm gonna name it board. That would be better. That way I'll have to change it at many places. Board.prisma and board member, as simple as that. If there is a board, people can be member of that. Then we can just simply create a board, board. Then this is gonna be board member, board owner is gonna be here, and overall this should be fine. Let me see, we have to change many things, but is this okay? Is this fine? It's mostly good to go, but I noticed you inconsistent ID fix before you go for the board member uses room ID. This is the biggest issue. So this is the corrected version. Where is the backend? How do we have collections here? Well, this is altogether different one. I think I'd better just simply make changes directly. Let's check this thing out. So ID we have here, string boolean. Board ID, that's gonna be index plane here. Board ID. Alrighty, overall this should be fine. That means your API naturally becomes board ID pages, board ID this. Anyway, board ID is definitely gonna be there. That's gonna be the first part. Board IDs, pages, and the shapes. So it's gonna be just like this. What am I missing? Okay, the naming thing, this BOARD. It was room here, yeah, right. So ultimately it needs to be fixed though. So let's copy this version. Earlier you decided to generate IDs on the front end for collaborator entities like shapes. For board and board members, I'd keep default UID unless these entities also created from the client before reaching the server. Whenever we are creating a board, it directly reaches the server, so no problem. Front end generated ID shape page image asset board member invite activity log. That's fine. So the ID is just kept on the backend side. So this is how it's just simply done. Not a bad deal. Still there seems to be some errors. Board role. Now there's really isn't a board role, so we'll have to just simply change the type somewhere. Anyway, all the things need to be just simply restructured. I'll be back after a while, and then we'll continue from here. I know it hasn't been quite a lot, but I'll try to be back very soon, and then we'll continue.